Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in today to talk about Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 26 of 2025, and I will be the first to admit, last video probably wasn't the best Weekly Shonen Jump video I've ever made. Granted, it was definitely a lot less fun to record than it was to actually sit down and edit. I think it would turn out to be a fine video whenever I was listening back to it editing, but just the recording process of that video, I thought it was a very bad one, even though we are covering a very, very good issue of Weekly Shonen Jump, in my opinion. And I don't know if it's just because, I finished reading this issue of Jump, 15 minutes ago or something like that, but this issue of Jump might just be even better than last one. And that's honestly very hard to beat because, of course, last week we didn't have One Piece in the magazine, but we had Redragon, and this week it's sort of vice versa on that, but we just have an absolutely amazing issue of Weekly Shonen Jump talked about this week. We have 14 series in general to sit down and talk about, of course, all of the abbreviations you see here on screen, and if you cannot figure out what they are in the context of all of the manga reading in a Weekly Shonen Jump, you'll find out through the course of this presumably 1 hour video, as most of these rambling ons about Weekly Shonen Jump tend to be at this point. But if you guys don't know how this series works, it is just very simple. We are going to be going through, and I will be rambling about all 14 of these series I read in Jump this week, talking about the plot points I want to talk about, sometimes just talking about the entire chapter. I feel like that's going to be happening a lot this week, because just looking through these chapters, we had a lot of really good stuff in Jump this week, just what can I say? And of course, we'll then be ranking all of those series from what I thought was the best chapter of the week, all the way down to what I thought was the worst chapter of the week, and all of the other 12 spots in between. And with that, we will also be picking my favorite character of the week, just who I thought had a really awesome showing, and just who I thought looked pretty cool. And yeah, really for all of that out of the way, I just wanted to be talking about this issue of Weekly Shonen Jump, because like I said, I just thought it was astoundingly good, right? But of course, we're going to be starting that off with the 80th chapter of Kagurabachi. Now, of course, I do a Kagurabachi review series here on the YouTube channel also, and if you guys are listening to this on podcasting platforms, go check out the YouTube channel at Glowplasma, and you can see my Kagurabachi chapter reviews there. But pretty much to be going through this chapter of Kagurabachi, this will be fairly quick, but if you want to hear a 33 or 34 minute video on this chapter of Kagurabachi, I've got a video up on the channel, of course. But this was a very interesting chapter of Kagurabachi, because we mainly just focused on Hakurei the entire chapter, right? We saw him walking around with Kudo. We got a lot of lore exposition from, Kudo being hey, this is the pretty much barrier we have around here. There's, 7 people who control it, all yada yada yada. Until eventually we end up running into a guy whose name I already forgot, even though I just talked about this chapter of Kagurabachi, 3 hours ago. His name is said here somewhere. Yes, Ishihira. We run into this guy who is pretty much a teacher in the Kabanagi, and we see that he pretty much starts spewing out a bunch of death flags, hey, I really love my daughter here, pretty much. It'd be a shame if she were to be a hostage and would die because I didn't do something, right? And we see that he pretty much uses a blade and slits his own throat here in an elevator, and this pretty much causes a bunch of pine tree sorcery, of course, from the Hishaku member, to be pretty much springing out of his body, and it seems like Kudo may sort of do a self-sacrifice, or at least hey, I'm going to get hurt so you don't have to, Hakurei, and sort of shoves Hakurei away, leaving Hakurei to sort of have to wander through the halls of the Kabanagi, and eventually runs into some of these other sorcerers who, of course, have also had hostages taken, which will make them not be able to act as they really want to, and we pretty much see that Hakurei eventually uses his storehouse and his soap powers to pretty much get these guys out of here, and the whole idea is Hakurei's hey, I don't care what these people think, I am still a core fighter here in this battle, and I'm the only one who can do my mission of going to the Sword Saint and getting the Enchanted Blade, and pretty much getting the, there's a gnat flying around where I'm recording, and I just saw it off the corner of my eye, and it's really annoying flying by, you know what I'm saying? But yes, Akuri's pretty much I am one of the core fighters too, I don't care what you're doing, I am the only one who can sort of do my job. And that's where we end off this chapter of Kagurabachi, a very good one at that, just as most Kagurabachi chapters are, how can I hate this chapter, you know? Next up is One Piece, and this One Piece chapter, again, really just focuses on a few characters. Of course, we focus mainly on Gaban, who had just come in to start dealing with the Thorn Devil Fruit guy. Oh gosh, I forget what his name is right now. Saint Somers, that's what his name is. But we pretty much see that Gaban is coming through using his axe, and is able to actually, truly damage, oh gosh, I just said his name, Saint Somers here in a moment. And we pretty much see that eventually he goes through and completely cuts, Scoppergaban completely cuts St. Somers in half, and Chopper sort of sees this and is like, hey, there's got to be some key to what Scoppergaban is doing, and I'm going to go try to figure that out, right? So it's a little bit of an interesting thing as Chopper runs off to go find out all of that. We see that St. Killingham, of course, is the weird dragon guy, watches as one of the teachers of the Owl School pretty much sets the entire school building on fire, and the whole idea is like, hey, everybody choose to not sacrifice, of course, the little girl, and to pretty much be like, hey, we are going to burn down all of our information because we just can't have all of these people just be wounded here in the moment, pretty much, right? Legitimately, a very, very noble thing, right? Well, eventually, Scoppergaban is heading over to where Gunko is, and of course, all of the giant children, and there's this whole idea as Scoppergaban is running over there, he's like, hey, look at that, and they're all like, hey, it's Mr. Ya, isn't that crazy, he's coming to save us, and my favorite joke of this chapter is definitely Scoppergaban being like, hey, don't speak up, Colin, don't tell him I'm your father, you can be used as a hostage that way, right? But of course, Colin just is like, oh, look, it's Daddy, it's like, hey, it's my daddy, everybody, he's stronger than everybody, right? And of course, this just turns out terribly for Scoppergaban, as we see that he even tries to use some, what I take to be Conqueror's hockeys. We really just get that image of, like, his eyes shaded in that way that, like, we often see with Luffy or Shanks whenever they use Conquerors. And Gunko sort of notices this and goes to pretty much use Colin as a hostage, pretty much what you expect here. And Scoppergaban is like, hey, I need to do this. But of course, he doesn't want his son, Colin, to die. So we even get a little flashback to him and Ripley in the hospital, of course, after she gave birth. And pretty much Scopper just being like, hey, you have given me a gift, Ripley, my lifelong treasure, right? And Gaban is just like, no, I can't do it. I yield pretty much. And we see Gunko fire off some arrows, piercing 3 into Scopper's body as he sort of falls off this branch of the tree, right? And it's like, oh no, what is going to be happening to Scoppergaban here? We see that Chopper's here. I'm pretty sure Chopper is going to be doing something to help out pretty much, right? But the whole idea is, as all this happening, all of the children are like, oh no, it's my dad, right? Like, Colin's like, oh no, this is bad. Everyone's like, Mr. Ya, oh no. And this seems to awaken a memory in Gunko's mind of whenever she was a young girl calling somebody father. And we see that it is a rather large, slender man with an afro who said yo-ho-ho a lot. I wonder who that could be related to, right? As the whole idea is like, okay, this seems to be Brook, or didn't the captain of Brook's pirate crew back in the day also say yo-ho-ho? God, I don't remember, because, like, it's been a long time since I did my first read through of One Piece, and even then I really haven't gone back to remember all of that, but whatever that captain's name was, it may be him, I'm not really so sure, but the whole idea here is, as all this happens, it seems like Gunko is sort of like having this thing, and just he's like, oh, and thinks like the name of Brook, and is like running over to pretty much see him, but it seems like then Emu speaks into all of the knights' face, to saying like, hey, what's taking so long? At this moment, the Holy Land is a sea of fire, we need greater numbers. Allow me to show you the dominance of a god, and seems to go through and almost take over Gunko's body. Very intriguing stuff. I really do like how this chapter sort of played out, and I have been a fan of Gunko's design since the beginning, and when I'm a fan of a character's design, normally means I'm also a fan of their character in general. And I just like how Gunko's being brought up, and I like the whole thing of like, oh, she listens to Brook's music, and now it seems like she's going to be having more of an intertwining with Brook. I really like this, and can't wait to see where we go next time for chapter 1150 of One Piece. An insane sentence to actually say out loud, but I thought this was a very good chapter of One Piece, right? Keep it on with the good chapter train. We have Ichi the Witch next, and pretty much this whole chapter is the whole idea of like, hey, this is what everybody is currently up to. We see that Richia is, of course, in the castle, and some of the people are just like, hey, it seems like those criminals are like doing a bigger fight thing outside there. We don't really know what's going on. We check in with Kumagi, who, of course, since Uroawashi has disappeared, since Ichi is no longer able to like keep it on her, pretty much he's got to use all of his magic to fend off Gokuraku here in a moment. We pretty much see that Kumagi is like, oh no, this isn't very good, right? And asks Descaros for some backup, right? And pretty much, eventually Descaros says, like, she ends up having Bakugami pinned right this second, right? And Kumagi's like, what in the world is happening over there, right? As we cut to page number 4 and 5 of this chapter, as we see that Descaros is saying, like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess the best way to put it is, it's kind of a giant game of tug of war. As we see Descaros using one of her magics, it's called Yatsukami, and we just see it's this gigantic rope dragon that is holding Bakugami back I love the fact that Deskross has so many of these magics and that she's just able to use whichever one she wants. It is just such an awesome thing, and every time we get a new magic revealed from Deskross, it's just like, whoa, that's just really cool, right? But Deskross just pretty much says, like, hey, I put up a protective barrier around the kingdom to all the roads and up to the capital, pretty much. I've also done a formal request for backup, and, like, hey, I've also, like, holding back this oversized monochrome pig, as she calls it, right? And we all see that she's got a mirror looking in on the battle of Ichi and Gokuraku, and pretty much just thinks like, hey, I want the two of them to sort of fight it out, but if the worst case, if it looks like Ichi's about to die, then I'll pretty much snag him out of there, even if it means like messing up the trial and causing collateral damage. And she's like, hey, the mutt will hate me for it, but if that's what it has to be, then that's what it's going to be, right? And from there, we cut to this other scene for the rest of the chapter, as we see what's going on inside of Gokuraku's mind, as we see that him and Richa are sitting in a flower field, right? Richa's making some flower crowns from Gokuraku, and the two of them are really talking about this, and eventually Gokuraku brings up their mother. And it seems like Richa, at least in this vision, doesn't have any memories of her mother, right? As we see it starts to rain all of a sudden, but this cloud of sadness is above them, and the sorrow and sadness is raining down from the heavens, right? And Gokuraku's like, oh crap, what's this? And it sort of fills a pool around Gokuraku, and Gokuraku ends up falling into it, right? As we see, another one of these pools forms, and out of it comes, of course, the mother of Richa and Gokuraku. And the mother just says, like, oh, have you forgotten about me, all dear Richa, right? And like, hey, you never brought flowers to my grave, you never even visited it. And she's like, hey, Richa. As the sorrow forms a knife in Richa's hands, pretty much, right? As their mother just says, like, hey, you must atone. And Gokuraku's like, no, don't do it. But Richa sort of just takes a knife, holds it up to her throat. And as we see Gokuraku's just pleading for her not to do it, we see that it happens. We see a ball of these flower petals stained with blood, as we just see, like, the bottom of, like, Richa's mouth is just, like, covered in blood, as it looks like Gokuraku falls through the sadness into an abyss below the flower field. As Gokuraku just thinks, like, enough, I don't want it anymore. I don't want to see anything, hear anything, feel anything. My chest hurts so badly, it feels like it's ripping itself apart. I don't want to hurt like this anymore. I don't want these feelings. I don't need them. I don't need anything. But as this happens, and Gokuraku's sort of like grabbing his collar pretty much right wherever his chest is pretty much. So you see he's grabbing that. We see there's a small ball of light that sort of appears, and Gokuraku notices it. And the small light just says, hey Gokuraku, what's family like? Presumably, this is sort of Gokuraku seeing to the outside and seeing what Ichi is saying to him from the outside, and just a really good chapter of Ichi the Witch through and through. I loved how we sort of like get all the contextualization of like, hey, here's what's going on with Ichi or Deskross, Kumagi, all of these characters here. And then we are cutting into all of like, hey, here's what's going on with inside Gokuraku's psyche, and this is how he's also getting out of it when he really just doesn't have a will to live at this point. Again, great chapter of Ichi the Witch, right? And normally, I'm not the biggest fan of Kill Blue, but I also thought this was a awesome chapter of Kill Blue because what it does is it sets a nice pace for the upcoming match, of course, the Airsoft match between the Home Ec Club and the Student Council, right? Well, we see that Kill Blue got a color page this week, and honestly, I am a massive fan of this color page because it's just like, hey, this is a series Kill Blue, and we just see all of the main characters of the Student Council, and we get their names put on the screen here in the moment. Of course, the Student Council president is Subaru Ichijo, right? I'll just be calling him Subaru. The vice president is Nadeshiko Neo. Treasurer is Pino Hino. Secretary is Kikunosuke Iori, and General Affairs is Kaide Juraku, right? And of course, these are going to be big characters, and I don't know why. I'm not always the biggest fan of Kill Blue, but sometimes, I don't know how he does it, but Tadatoshi Fushimaki can make some cool-ass color pages. That's what I'm saying, right? I just like how this one looks here at the end of the day, right? But pretty much the whole idea is like, hey, everybody's just sort of, the student council is all talking with each other about the battle sort of coming up here. We see there's a lot of banto back and forth between all of them, and we'll really just see how all of this team works out. And I also find it really funny that all these characters get name dropped in this chapter anyway, so, but still, it's a little bit of a funny thing, right? But we just see all of them talking with each other. And the whole idea is Subaru's like, hey guys, whatever you do, don't let the Hallmet Club down. Like, remember, they were the one who went through and won the baking competition or the sales trophy at the Rika School Festival, pretty much, right? And Subaru's like, hey, whatever you do, there's nothing that we can't achieve, but also, like, don't let all of them down, right? We see that it's now the weekend where this whole battle is getting ready to happen, and it looks like, oh no, all of the students from the school are actually here, right? And of course, the people in the broadcasting club are going through and like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to begin. The Hallmet Club is about to face the student council in an airsoft gun battle. Building B of the school courtyard is they're pretty much going through all of that stuff, pretty much, right? And eventually, Nadeshiko's like, okay, who put the whole thing on trial, pretty much, right? Like, how's this turned into a school-wide event? And I love how Iori then just comes up and just is like, hey, I identified the person responsible this moments ago, and holds up Pino by the scruff of her collar, pretty much, right? She's like, hey, I thought it'd be much more fun this way, right? As the whole idea is, everybody's getting ready. But then the Hallmet Club sort of walks up to the area, and of course they look like war-hardened criminals, pretty much, right? As they sort of just walk up, and the whole idea is like, hey, we're ready to smash you guys like ketchup, and the student council's like, okay, their vibe is totally shifted, like, what's going on here, right? And we even see, like, Pinma, Mai, and a bunch of the other characters we know are like, what the hell is going on with them, pretty much, right? As the whole idea is like, hey, here are the rules. It's a 5-on-5 team battle. Victory can only be achieved by eliminating the enemy team's captain. Other fatalities are not a factor. And if you get shot for round even once, you are out of the game, pretty much, right? And the teams will both begin their battles at either end of this school building and go around doing their attacks from there, right? And bench members may help out by, like, supporting them over the radio channels, pretty much, right? And we see that, of course, the Hallmet Club team is Norin, Ogami, Chitatsu, and two of the other members of the Hallmet Club. We probably have their names. Their names probably exist in, like, volume extras or something. I don't know them. Simple as that. But the whole idea here is, like, okay, they're getting ready to go through all of this. And as the whole idea is, like, hey, both teams have arrived. It's time for this battle to begin. I find it really funny that we just get a shot of everybody in this series. We of course, get a shot of, like, Tenma, Mai, and all the other characters we know in the school. We see Principal Oka and his, like, main attendant behind him. We see an image of Kazane, or, oh, was it Kazama? I forget whatever his name was, but of course, his brother Eiji, the justice guy, and of course, the other two unicorns we've seen, of which was the horse riding guy, the fencing guy, and the guy who punches things really, really hard. I don't remember their names. But the whole idea is like, hey, the battle is now beginning. And the big twist is like, oh, Ogami is suddenly running outside as he's just thinking like, hey, I need to hide that I'm a hitman from everybody, so if I'm acting sort of like unrational like this, they won't really have an idea who I am. Iori and Kazane both, or not Kazane, what was his name? Kaide. They both spot Ogami and start to fire a little bit, and Ogami, like, acts like, oh no, they're shooting at me, right? And then we pretty much see that Kaide ends up getting shot by one of the Hallmet Club girls. So she's just like, hey, when you blast away like that, it makes you real easy to spot. As Kaide just thinks like, damn it, like I got out so early. But hey, I was only showing like a little bit of my body. How did she actually hit me, right? As we see during the time when Ogami was training them all, he brought up like a little bit of a pot, and everybody's like, oh, do you have curry in this pot? And it's like a really big pot, but pretty much he just has thousands of rounds of ammunition in there, right? He just says like, hey, you guys are going to fire off every last round, and nobody's going home until you do. The way to really get good is just to keep on firing till you're like pretty much done, pretty much, right? As the whole idea, there's a little bit of like a joke of like, oh man, I'm hearing shots in my sleep. It seems like a little like a trauma thing, but it's also like, it's not really the place we should be, like, joking about serious trauma that affects people in warfare and stuff like that, but either way, the whole idea is like, hey, Jiraku's been hit, he's leaving the field, and Subaru's like, oh man, they must have done quite a bit of training, and that's where we end off this chapter of Kill Blue, and I legitimately really enjoyed this, because one of the issues I have with Kill Blue is whenever we get to these bigger competitions, it's like, oh yeah, look at that, they're just done in a chapter or two, and I'm very happy this seems like it'll at least be like maybe a 5 or 6 chapter ordeal is just like finally getting around to probably Subaru, and like it's going to be Subaru and Ogami, and Ogami's going to have to show some of his Hitman true colors to pretty much break out of this deadlock. But I really like how this chapter was done, and legitimately I thought it was very good. Sidcraft Loves a Mystery had the twist of the era this week, one that I didn't even see coming in this mystery manga, that all of the big twists and reveals have been very predictable so far, right? But of course, the whole idea is like, oh no, it seems like Sofue could be the one who's being attacked next. And the whole idea is we see that Lulu even just says like, hey, it looks like they may be trying to attack people from your childhood, Sid. And she's like, hey, don't you know that Sofue Sensei said she'd promised to marry a boy named Sai? Wasn't it you, Mr. Detective? And this chapter is really about Sid coming to terms with all of this. He's sort of running down the road to try to find Sofue, and he's thinking like, Inspector Flamberry was my first love, the girl who lost her parents and was taken in by distant relatives. That same girl, if I'm right, she was a dog lover. I would say that I was afraid when she would chase me with her dog, but none of that matters right now, and he's just like running down the streets, he's like, Inspector Flamberry, Inspector Flamberry! And this joke got me so incredibly hard whenever I was sitting on my couch reading these chapters, as we see that Sid just runs by all these things like, hey, Inspector Flamberry! And as he's running by, we just cut to a park bench where we see that Sofue is just sitting on the bench and says like, oh, you rang? And Sid's like, whoa, wait a second, you're here? Legitimately, a hilarious joke, right? But the whole idea is Sid's like, hey, was somebody around here? And she's like, no, if anybody was around here that was like suspicious, I would have obviously arrested them already. And there's a little bit of a few cute moments, and Sid's just like, well, was she really my first love? And we even see that Sofue's just like, I promised to marry someone whenever I was a kid. And this is really putting into context all of this for Sid, as he just thinks like, hey, Inspector Flamberry, if you are my first love, if you really are, there's so much I want to ask you. There's so much. As Sid opens his mouth and just says, hey, Inspector Flamberry, are you Zero Craft? Okay, but we see this takes Flamberry off guard here in a moment, as Sid just thinks like, no, stop this, like, he's like, I don't want to do this. He thinks like, hey, at first something felt slightly out of place. He's like, no, this isn't what I want to say, why are you saying this? But he just says like, hey, at the start of the case on the Alfy, the love letter you sent from was... The start of the case on the Alfy, the love letter was sent from Zero Craft to me, and that was sent to the police station, and so you happened to bring it to me from there, right? And yet Zero acted like he knew it had reached me, and right before I came here, the large man who attacked Elio testified, and just pretty much said like he was the last one who set up the bomb on the Alfy, and that some blonde inspector with ribbon on her chest, instructed her where to set that final bomb, right? As Sofue's like, wait, like, Sid, like, what kind of joke is this? Like, I almost died back there. Like, if that were true, I'd be absolutely insane to pull something about like that, right? And she just says, like, no. If we were talking about what's sane, up until a few minutes ago, you were here with someone, right? And Sofue's like, huh? Like, no, like I said, I wasn't with anybody. And Sid just says, like, no, look closely. As we see there's a bunch of footprints leading from the area of the park bench, wherever, of course, Sid and her are currently sitting. As he says, like, hey, you came here with someone else, and up until a few minutes ago, you were sitting here with them. And just says, like, hey, you've always been so awkward yet straightforward, and the type to fixate on the littlest things. It's part of your charm. But right now, which are you? As Sofue just says, like, no, enough is enough. Like, this is too cruel to be a joke. Like, if you're saying that I'm not sane, then show me proof. As all of a sudden, blood gets splattered onto Sofue's cheek, as we see that she is standing up and is holding a knife, and that Sidcraft has a knife wound in his side. And Sofue's just like, no, like, what is this, like, Sid? And she's like, wait a second, I can't speak. As we see from behind her appears Xcraft. He just says, like, oh, don't worry, Sofue. No, I mean Zero Craft. This is not your fault. It's Sidcraft's, right? This is all for the sake of love. As we see that in this moment, Sofue ends up fainting, and Sid and Xcraft pretty much like takes her in her hand, pretty much, right? As the whole idea is like Sid's like, oh, Inspector Flamberry, and like X is like, hey, what's wrong, Sid? You don't be looking quite so well, right? And Sid's like, damn it, hypnosis, like Xcraft, you took advantage of her and brainwashed her, right? And the whole idea is Xcraft just says like, hey, how does it feel to have your love torn asunder? How does it feel when the person you love most is the person you hate most? As Sid just looks up and just says like, oh, hey, you're Toby, aren't you? And we see that Xcraft is like, oh yes, the person who had love all this time ripped apart by you, your best friend, Toby. As what we sort of understand here is, like, in the past, and we even see, like, this has been foreshadowed for a while. Of course, whenever we saw all of those pictures with, Lulu, whenever she went over to Sid Craft's house, there's the whole thing there, and all those pictures that got shown. We see that, like, of course, Toby was in one of those pictures all the way back then, as the whole idea is Sid just says, like, hey, as we see that X pretty much likes Sofue when they were a kid, and, like, of course, Sofue likes Sid more, and the whole idea is, like, this is why he's getting revenge here, right? But pretty much, X-Craft just is like, hey, still kudos to you, great detective. You figured it out rather quickly than I expected. I have a variety of things in store and plan to enact my revenge slowly. But with that bleeding, you're already a goner. That's too bad. As we see Sid's just like, hey, you can fake your name, but you can't fake your true form, Toby. And it's like, hey, Inspector Flanberry, the same goes for you. As we just remember a little bit to Sofue's past, she just says, like, hey, Sai, great detectives are so cool. We'll be just like them one day. It's a promise, pretty much, right? And we see that she's just like, hey, I had 2 dreams. To marry the man I love, and then become renowned detectives together. But all of that is gone. As we cut over to a chapel in the middle of nowhere, and we see that Sofue has been put in a wedding dress, and also she has her arms chained above her head at the altar of this church, pretty much, right? And we see that X-Craft also walks in here in a moment, and he's also wearing a groom's men's suit, pretty much, and just says, like, hey, how are you doing, Zero Craft, right? And Sofue's like, hey, X, was I responsible for all those cases? And he's like, oh, yes, you were. And you can't go back to the police with those dirty hands, or you can't become a great detective either. So you've no choice but to live as Zero Craft with me. And Sofue just starts to cry, saying, like, no, I can't, please kill me, I can't possibly live like that, right? And X-Craft is just trying to manipulate her and more manipulate her, as eventually Sofue just thinks, like, hey, Sidcraft, I'm so sorry, when was it, when did I start having feelings for you regardless of Sai? And she thinks, like, hey, you can't fake your true form, Toby, of course, what she was saying earlier, and, like, hey, Flamberry's same goes for you. As we just see all the tears start to dry up at Sofue's eyes, pretty much, she just says, like, hey, X, you are lying. And that's where we end this chapter of Sidcraft. This was like one of those craziest roller coasters where it just like cops on the tracks and just like keeps going up and down. I don't know where it was going to go. Honestly, this does make a lot of sense the more we sort of look at it. And like it also sort of puts into contrast like all of these bigger cases that or all of these smaller cases that were sort of had where they were also obvious was hiding crucial like bigger information inside of them. This was just a really awesome chapter, and I thought Sidcraft was a great chapter this week. Granted, it sort of sucks that, like, yes, this chapter is definitely ending, being that this is, like, definitely the climax that we're getting to right now, but still, it was absolutely insanely good. I really enjoyed it, right? Next up is Otter of the Flame, chapter number 3. And we pretty much start up this chapter with Otter being told by Alajoki, like, hey, you need to go meet the hero on Mead Mountain. He's known as 610 of the Full Moon. And the whole idea is Otter's just thinking, like, hey, I need to get stronger. My lack of strength is really making Filja worry about me, so I need to get stronger enough to put Filja at ease, pretty much, right? And we even see that Filja... Oh my, what was that? Okay, alright, thanks, Cat. We even see that Phil just sort of, like, has this whole idea of, like, hey, I'm going to make a mini version of myself so it's less stressful and you order, pretty much. But we see his order sort of going around. He eventually gets to the area. He's like, oh, hey, this is Mead Mountain. He's like, hey, this is where we should find 610 over here, right? And he sort of walks up to this fire, and he's like, oh, hey, there's a campfire up here, and it seems fresh, too. And he's like, hey, and Phil just is like, hey, if this is the foot of Mead Mountain, then maybe the heroes around here, right? But Otter just is like, no, Philja. Turn back into a big flame. The state of this camp tells us a lot. He pretty much says, like, hey, the type of firewood, the way it was cut, and tell us what kind of blades they have, all this various stuff. And hey, if the fire is stacked like northern style or southern style, we can know if it's part of the Ice Kingdom or not. And the whole idea is like, hey, and also if we found a piece of flint, we could be able to tell, like, hey, what area of, like, the world they come from, and to know if they're pretty much a friend or foe, pretty much, right? And Otter's pretty much saying, like, hey, but look, this firewood doesn't have any axe marks, which means somebody would have destroyed this thing with their bare hands. And here in a moment, we see a tree gets ripped in half by a person behind Oder and Filja. As we just see, there's this guy, and just is like, oh, hey, watch out. As we see this guy just, like, breaks up all of these trees and, like, makes a little pike out of it, and also, like, throws a fish onto the ground, skewers it up here in a moment. And, of course, we'd realize that this is the guy known as Sixten, right? We also see this small girl walks up. You'll learn here in a second her name she is his pupil. Her name is, if I can think of how to possibly pronounce this, you know, it's Etu P. Ruko. There's probably, okay, let me type this into Google. I can probably get a pronunciation, which will be a whole lot better than me just, like, constantly messing this up. So, E-T-U, I didn't spell it, E-T-U-P-R, let me go back, P-I-R-K-O, P-I-R-K-O, let's press that in, and pronunciation, let's see if there's anything on here to say it. There is not at all. Okay, how do I say this? Etuprico? Yeah, Etuprico. I don't really know. I'm sorry. If it was a Japanese name, I could figure it out. This isn't one, though. What am I supposed to do here, pretty much, right? But we see that, of course, Etuprico is Sixten's disciple, pretty much, right? He's like, hello, my name is Sixten. It's like, it's cold. Here you can have the salmon stomach. It's pretty much the best part of the thing here, right? As the whole idea is Sixten's like, okay, I'm sorry, little kid, like, why are you here again? And pretty much what it is like, yes, he's to be your pupil. And the whole joke here is Sixten is pretty much a man of, like, conflicting interests, right? As pretty much Order just says, like, hey, I'd like you to train me so I can properly make use of my spirit's power, pretty much. Sixten's like, sounds good, but I might not be able to. I don't want to put kids on the battlefield, pretty much. Etuprico pretty much just says, like, hey, but I'm also a kid here, so, like, aren't you being a little double standard? And Sixten's like, oh, yeah, you're right, like, I mean, you're just, like, so mature at points, like, what am I supposed to do here, right? As eventually he's just like, hey, I'm sorry, I get myself confused very, very often, right? As the whole idea is, he's like, you know what I can do, though? I could give you a test. And Order's like, oh, a test? And we flip the page, and we see that Sixten is holding out his hand right in front of Order. And Sixten just goes, dodge this. As we see the Order has to sort of, like, hop back out of the way, and Sixten's like, oh, man, look, you can even move properly even when I hit you with my bloodlust, pretty much, right? It's like, hey, self-appraisal, that's nothing more than upservice and irresponsible praise from our people. Neither is strong enough to carry the weight of someone's life. Like, are you an asset of war, or are you just a warrior, or just a child, pretty much, right? Convince me not with words, but through battle, pretty much. And the whole idea is like, hey, if you could hit me even once, you might have the right to stand on the battlefield, right? As we see the Order's like, oh no, this is good, pretty much just tells Filja, like, hey, get up out of here so we can actively attack this guy. As we see that he comes down, it's like, hey, don't take your eyes off the enemy, and goes and swings down at Order, pretty much, right? But the whole idea is we see that Order hops back, and he grabs a pot lid off of one of the pots around here, right? And also grabs the stick and shoves it in the fire, pretty much getting a flaming sword here in the moment, right? And hey, this is what Order looks like on the cover page of this series. This is really, really cool. He's got his good old trusty pot lid. It looks really neat, right? But the whole idea is Sixten's like, oh, so he's getting ready to unleash, like, a big attack or something. Like, what is he getting ready to do? And Order's like, hey, my father was a warrior. He taught me some of the ropes. Order pretty much goes around, swings this fire around, and eventually uses the shield to pretty much make a snow screen, like, knocking up some of the snow, and then throws this fire sword over, so that's where Sixten thinks he is, right? He's like, oh no, he used it as a decoy, like, what is he doing? As we see the Order comes in, grabs the shield, and goes and hits straight into the side of Sixten, right? And he's like, oh, you'll just end up burning yourself like this, so, like, why aren't you using your spirit's power? As Order just says, like, hey, compared to what everybody else is suffering through, the heat is nothing, pretty much, right? He just says, like, hey, besides, aren't you the one who wanted me to prove that I'm a warrior? If using the power of fire is all I can do, then I'm nothing more than a burning piece of firewood. I also need to be a warrior myself, or there's no point. I need to prove that I'm a sword. And the very end of the chapter, Sixten just going like, damn, this kid's pretty cool. And that's where we end off this chapter of Odor of the Flame. I thought it was really good. I love seeing Odor go through and, like, using his abilities here in the moment. I just thought it was really, really cool, right? And, like, hey, we got his resolve. I like Sixten as a character. Just a lot of really good stuff we got here, right? Embers is really going to be the first chapter where I don't have too much to say about it. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, hey, Yuzunarima's finally made the field. He is overwhelming everybody on the Kosei team, and like, oh no, what are they going to be able to do? And the whole idea is like, he just keeps growing goals after goals. He gets rid of Bugai's whole strategy. He gets rid of Takami's whole thing. And eventually, like, yeah, even Yukizuki's at a loss of what to do. And Naruma scores all these goals, and the end of the chapter is him just being like, hey, Nobru Haitani, show me what you've got, right? I will admit, I've sort of a little checked out of this series at this point. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I was really, really enjoying it, but I know how the sales are looking. I know it's not looking great, and yeah, really, just what am I supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in this weird spot where, like, I'm trying to keep attachment for the series, but also, like, this wasn't totally amazing. Like, yeah, it's just one of those things. I thought it was fine. I thought it was well and done good. Like, it wasn't, like, something terrible like Nice Prison would ever be, pretty much. But also, it wasn't like, man, like, I am so hyped up after reading this chapter, you know? It was just one of those, right? A Star of Beethoven is up next, and of course, right now we are having the converging of all of our plot lines in this moment, right? As we pretty much see, like, yes, Lexi and Marcia are here in the moment, or actually, I should just open up the chapter because I almost forgot about the beginning of this chapter, where it seems like somewhere in Germany there's another pianist who is referred to as Mr. V, and his whole idea, or Mr. F, my bad, he's not referred to as Mr. V. He's referred to as Mr. F, and it seems like he knew Beethoven back in the day, so I don't know if there's another, like, big famous pianist whose name starts with an F, I'm not really so sure, or maybe just, like, another famous person who's been sort of reincarnated. I'm not really so sure where all this is going here, right? But of course, we see that Ichiro has been caught by both Lexi and Marcia, and we see that Lexi's pretty much come through and just, like, he's hurt Ichiro a little bit, right? He's just like, hey, is what I'm asking really that hard, right? And we see that Ichiro's like, hey, what's your problem here? And, like, have you ever occurred to you that, like, being so eager to punch people, like, might make them reluctant to you a little bit, right? And I love how Lexi's like, oh, how odd, I always considered violence a universal language, right? But Marcia walks up and just says, like, hey, you seem like a smart boy. Surely you prefer, like, solve this whole thing peacefully through, like, dialogue. And I love Ichiro here for saying, like, oh, so it's like a good cop, bad cop thing now, right? And Marcia just says, like, oh, a shrewd theory. But I'm afraid we're both bad. Just as like, hey, I'll be direct. You know anything about the ring? Ichiro has no reaction, because of course he does not know any about this, because the only reason we know about this is from conversations that Lexi and Marcia have actively had, pretty much, right? And the whole idea is, like, Lexi just, or Marcia just explains, like, hey, I'll explain your situation. There's this man named Beethoven who's pretty much appeared in front of you, and she's like, hey, say, for example, I claim to be reincarnated from, be a reincarnated person from 200 years ago. Would you believe me? The whole idea is, like, no, of course you would never, pretty much, right? And I love how she eventually gets to the point of, like, hey, can this process be reproduced? Can it be harnessed in some way? His presence in this time period is too much of an aberration for humanity to accept that such of a miracle has only occurred once in all of human history. And we see a depiction of Jesus on the crucifix, right? And it's like, oh yes, this manga about Beethoven coming into 21st century Japan is akin to Jesus Christ. It's just a really funny thing, right? But Marcia just says, like, hey, tell us what you know about Beethoven. You can forget about all this. Go back to your everyday life. Or would you rather become part of a world that traffics such in a matter of life and death, pretty much, right? There's some random guy who, like, walks down the streets like, hey, what are you people doing back here in this alleyway? And in this moment, Ichiro just, like, runs away from both Lexi and Marcia, right? As Lexi just says, like, hey, I think I'll beat him buddy this time so he doesn't become even more of a problem. And as Ichiro's sort of just, like, running away, he's thinking about Beethoven and all this stuff, and as he's running away onto a bridge, we see that Lexi just appears up behind him saying, like, hey, don't got much of in the way of endurance to you, and, like, now you're on a bridge, you got no way out, there's no escaping us now. You were playing that piano in the picture I saw of you, so you're a pianist, right? So maybe once I stop breaking your fingers, maybe you'll stop to behave. As we see that Ichiro just thinks about all this, thinks about Beethoven, and just says, like, hey, a minute ago you said I could go back to my everyday life, but I don't even know what that means anymore. In the 2 years before I met him, I didn't feel like I was alive at all. As we see Ichiro run over to the side of the bridge and jump out of it into the water. And Lexi's just like, what? Like, I thought pianos were, like, sensitive, delicate flowers. And Marsha's like, yes, a lot of them are, but this young man seems to be quite of the hardy fellow, pretty much, right? And she's like, okay, so his name's Ichiro Yasuo, he's a Reiro Academy student, he looks at all, she swiped his wallet, and she's pretty much looking through all of his information. She's like, hey, his address is over that way, and if he ran the opposite direction, that means that Beethoven may be hiding in his apartment, pretty much, right? Like, maybe they've got, like, some bonds or something going on, right? As we see that eventually Ichiro has made it out of the water and is sitting on a park bench, right? And I love the video because we see that Ichiro sitting here, and Lexi is sitting right beside him. It's like, yes, Ichiro's jumped off a bridge here in a moment to escape Lexi. It's such a funny thing where, like, he's just escaped all these times, but Lexi's just so good at his job, he just finds him after the fact, right? As we see Lexi's like, hey, relax, I told you I'm not gonna break any of your fingers, although, if you run away again, I may have to, right? And pretty much just says, like, hey, I've never played an instrument myself. There's a little bit of a small talk with Ichiro, until eventually, we see that Marcia has gone over, grabbed Beethoven, and, of course, Beethoven and Ichiro are reunited again, but also, this means they are reunited with Marcia and Lexi. And it's like, okay, what are we going to be bringing into next chapter? Honestly, I'm expecting there to be a really nice emotional thing between both Beethoven and Ichiro. So the whole idea is like, hey, I'm sorry I was so hard on you earlier, but we need to be able to make do this if you're going to be, like, doing so good. Like, you still have, like, this Reiro piano festival thing to go on to. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you still have to do, Ichiro, right? And of course, what's going to be happening to Beethoven? Just a lot of really good intrigue, and the gag of Ichiro constantly running away and Lexi just finding him was absolutely hilarious. I very much enjoyed Star of Beethoven this week, right? Hima-ten is up next, and this chapter is really focusing on Himari, as her whole idea is like, hey, the student festival is coming, or the school festival is coming up, and everybody's sort of playing their parts. What part do I have to play in it, right? Of course, Kana's voice is definitely wrecked because she's going to be part of this idol group. We see that Kana is actually doing something else. Also, we see that she's going to be part of the fashion stuff, pretty much, right? Part of the, I forget what they call it. I'm not, like, opening up the chapter, being that I remember enough that I don't really feel like talking about the entire thing. But we see that she's coming up, she's doing all of her fashion-based stuff, and this pretty much makes Himari a little sad, like, what is my role in this whole thing? Sumire even comes up and is also, like, sort of trying to push her, and I almost said Ichiro, Iamori together, until the whole idea is Iamori just says, like, hey, well, maybe you could help me out, like, run all the student council from behind the scenes, and the whole idea is, like, hey, it seems like they may be hanging out with each other during all of these events of the school festival, and that's really where we end off this chapter, is like, hey, it seems like Himari and, Iamori maybe sort of like having a pseudo date during a school festival, right? Exactly what she's wanted from the beginning. I thought it was a fine chapter, but also, like, wasn't my favorite of chapter of Hima-ten that we've ever had, right? Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi was a chapter totally focused on Tsujuri Hijiri fighting the number 1 demon lord Tonjichi, pretty much. As we see the battle is pretty much happening through them, we see a little bit of a flashback with Tonjichi. It's like, hey, he is a literal man-eating beast. Tonjichi, the first demon lord, no one has ever crossed blades with him and lived to tell the tale, pretty much, right? As you even see in this flashback to Tonjichi went through and even murdered a cross paladin. Like, whoa, that's a really big deal, right? But the whole idea is that Tonjichi's really excited. He's like, man, you cut me, like, that's crazy, only 3 people have ever done that before, and he's like, okay then, it's time for a drink, and we see that, like, he is a very lightweight drunk, pretty much, right? Like, he even, like, drinks some alcohol and spits it on his chest so the wound can't even close up, pretty much, right? He just says, like, hey, I don't want my wounds to heal because I look so much cooler that way, right? And we see that Sujiri's like, okay, this guy can't hold his liquor, and Tonjiri's just like, hey, are you thinking, like, I can't hold my liquor? Because I totally can, like, I just get flushed easily, like, I'm not even a little bit drunk, you know what I'm saying? And Sujiri's like, yep, said every drunk guy ever, right? We then see that, of course, Tonjiri's just like, hey, but this is where the real battle begins, like the demon blade rattling bones, who even other demons, they know this is fear, it's a cursed katana. Oh no, he falls asleep. And then we see that Tsujiri gets ready, uses the Blade Runner Excalibur here in a moment, but as he's running towards Tonjichi, he gets a vision of himself being cut into thirds, of course, right? And, of course, there's this little bit of a bigger battle between them. They're doing all of their attacks. Eventually, Tonjichi ends up going through, getting a massive cut on Tsujiri. And, oh no, it's looking like Tsujiri isn't doing very good. But, of course, he's a cross paladin, so he stands back up to fight Tonjinchi. I thought it was a fine chapter. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Tsurugi, so it's like, it's so hard for me to be as hyped up for a one-on-one battle of him as it was for me to be hyped up on a one-on-one battle between, of course, the underdog of this series, Sosuke, but I'll still be very impressed to see where this goes on from here, but it was a fine chapter. Like, it wasn't terrible whatsoever, but still, it was ultimate Exus Kyoshi, you know? Next up is Akane Banashi, and of course, hey, I almost said Kuraku Cup. No, this is not the Kuraku Cup, this is the makeover of the Kuraku Cup. Of course, the Zunin prize event is getting ready to start, right? As we see that Tyson Arakawa has made it over here to the event, so it's like, hey, Akane is running really late, like, what is she doing here in the moment, right? As we see that Zenmai Anisan pretty much walks up, and him and Tyson have a little bit of conversation about all of this various stuff, right? Until eventually we see that Zenmai just says, like, hey, obviously this is a massive event to stand out on, like, the press and everybody's here, but the problem is, all the notoriety and star power of this event is concentrated into just 2 people. As we get pretty much what is the equivalent of a 2-page spread, as we get 2 singular 1-page spreads of both Hikaru Arakawa and Karashi Sanmeti here in the moment, right? As we see these 2 walk up to each other, and we just see that, as we see that Hikaru just is like, oh, hey, look at that, Karashi, did you join a talent agency? And like, hey, isn't that your manager behind her, right? And Karashi's like, oh, nah, she's just my servant, pretty much, right? As, of course, this is Hanmei Minase. I'm pretty sure we saw a chapter focused on her before, of course, whenever we saw Karashi stuff. I feel like that was a video. I'm pretty sure I talked about that chapter in a video of Weekly Shonen Jump, or maybe it was one of those that I didn't make a video on. I honestly don't fully remember, right? But the whole idea is that she's like, hey, my name's Hane Minase, this is my childhood friend for better or worse, like, hey, as a side gig, I manage his business, right? But the whole idea is that she's also just checking out Hikaru this entire time, right? As the whole idea is, Karashi's like, hey, Hikaru, you're talking awfully familiar to me. For someone who only shared my stage. Of course, in the 2-person event that they did together, right? He's just like, hey, you don't think we're friends or something, don't you? And Hikaru's like, oh no. Here were opponents, right? And Karashi just thinks the whole idea of, like, hey, I'd rather have her as my opponent. Same goes you two, voice actor, of course, talking about Akane and her here in a moment. As we just see that Karashi's like, oh, look at that. So freaky, pretty much, right? But Tyson pretty much, like, looks at this situation just as, like, wow, it's just the 2 of them getting all testy, but it's like the entire room is holding on collectively to its breath. Like, these 2 are sucking up all of the oxygen in the room, right? As Zenmai is just like, oh no, once again, the major contest is just going to be going down to these 2, right? As we see somebody also enters the room. And who else would it be than Akane? We see, of course, our main news reporter guys like, oh, Lay, look at that, pretty much, right? As a bunch of these people are like, oh, who is this girl, pretty much, right? As Akane just walks up, just like, oh, hey, Hikaru, Karashi, like, hey, it's good to finally see you 2 again, right? And she's like, hey, oh my gosh, Karashi, you've grown your hair out, right? And we just see that Hikaru's like, really? That's it? That's your first comment, right? And all of the people in the room are just like, hey, who is that? Like, why are they talking so, like, buddy-buddy with those 2? Like, who is she, pretty much, right? As we see Akane just as like, oh, the 3 of us in a competition, it sure takes you back, huh? To the Kuraku Cup. Back then, it seemed like we were all going on it for our own specific reasons, but now, it's a different story. Hikaru, Karashi, I've come to beat you, so it won't be easy. But hey, I'm gonna win again, and whoever loses, no hard feelings. As Hikaru's like, oh hey, that's fine, because I'll win for a second time. And Karashi's like, ha, you're all talk. I'm going to destroy you both. So Kane's like, hey, we'll see about that. As we cut over to the stage of the Zunin Prize, as we see the MC just is like, right now, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin the preliminary round of the Zunin Prize. And that's where we end this chapter of Akane Banashi. And somebody in the Shonen Jump comments put it bestly, Hikaru and Karashi are aura farming, so Akane can aura farm even harder. This was an amazing chapter. I absolutely loved seeing, of course, all 3 of these characters banter with each other, and It's so crazy. This chapter doesn't feel like it was, 21 pages when it, legitimately was. It was such a quick, fast, but so efficient chapter. Also, I forgot to mention Akane Banashi had a color page this week. It's, a very nice pale red background of Akane sitting on the front of it. I thought it looked pretty nice, but I just didn't mention it there at the beginning of the chapter. Really good, a really good chapter of Akane Banashi, though. What can I say, right? Blue Box is up next, and for everybody who's like, oh man, things are getting too steamy between Taiki and Chinatsu, what are they going to do? In reality, Taiki's just going to go home because he sort of has to, right? Or at least both of them are getting ready to head home. We see that they do head home, and the next day we see that all of Chinatsu's stuff is getting packed up into the Inamata family van, pretty much, right? As they're pretty much like, hey, you've done everything for 2 years for you, we hope you enjoyed our time. Chinatsu's like, hey, thank you guys so very much for the past 2 years, right? We see that Taiki and Taiki's father go over and help Chinatsu unload everything. And of course, Taiki is, very embarrassed by what happened in Chinatsu's rooms. As we see, he walks in and just, sees a spot on the floor wherever the two of them were laying together. And his dad's like, hey, son, what are you freezing for, right? And Taiki's like, nothing. Is his face is just red and flush here in a moment. And we see that Taiki's whole room, or not Taiki's whole room, Chinatsu's room has sort of been set up. And she's just sort of looking longingly towards everything, right? Well, we see Taiki gets up the next morning. He's just like, man, it's a little quiet here without somebody else here, right? And he also goes to the gym, where there's no Chinatsu senpai at all. Man, it's such a sad scene to sort of, just see the stages of emotion that Taiki has to go through in this chapter. Halfway through the chapter, we see that, of course, Ayame is talking with Hina and some of the other girls in the class, being like, hey, we have our long-awaited 3-day, 2-night class trip to Kyoto coming up soon. Hey, it's going to be so awesome and amazing. As pretty much we just see everything's going on here. Taiki's walking around the area. Him and Kyo are talking about the class trip, but he's got to go turn in, of course, their plans. They had to make a revision because, of course, his group wasn't really doing too much of the planning. Definitely seems like a group full of boys because that is just what we do, right? But as he's walking into the room, he sees Chinatsu talking to somebody, and of course, he thinks about that, thinks about their kiss they shared the other night, and his face just goes red and flush because of it, pretty much, right? He does all of his badminton practice and is then walking home from school, runs into Chinatsu and just is like, hey, I was waiting for you, I want to go to buy my apartment real quick, and sort of they start walking that way. Of course, Taiki's being a good boyfriend and dropping her off, and eventually she's like, hey, you want to come upstairs? And Taiki's like, no, I'm sorry, I'd love nothing more than joining you, but my mom asked me to go, get some, toilet paper, so I gotta go do that, you know what I'm saying, right? But Chinatsu just is like, hey, then you better hurry, right? And Taiki's like, yeah, definitely what it is. I'll be there soon, pretty much, right? As we see Chinatsu just goes back upstairs to her room, unlocks her door, flops down on her bed, and she's just like, man, I think it'll take a while for me to get used to this loneliness. So as we just get a shot of Chinatsu's face looking very, solemn and sad, don't break my heart like this, oh gosh, Blue Box, what can I say? It was a good-ass chapter. The Elusive Samurai, not really too much to write home about. We see, hey, this is the end of all of the Kono brothers. Tokuyuki ends up taking care of all of them. There's honestly a really funny moment wherever Kojiro goes and grabs Shina's legs and just uses her as a bigger sword. It's honestly a pretty funny joke. We see that, a bunch of these people are helping Gimba and Natsu dispose of all of these Tengu, pretty much. One guy's like, man, that makes 7 of them today, huh? Such a big day for Tengu in the sky, pretty much, right? And then really just all I did is hey, Tokiyuki at the end of the chapter asks Kono for hey, if you have any last words, no matter who you are, I will still pass them on. It just says hey, just tell Takayuji-sama that at my mansion there's a skillful cook named Osuka Saburo. Allow him to prepare your udon in my place. Proper meals are essential to good health, so please take care of yourself, right? And then Tokuyuki lets, of course, the Uesugi brothers go through and completely devour the rest of Kono Motofuyu here in the moment, as it's hey, he is finally out of the story, which really means that we only have one massive enemy left, and that's Takayuji. I honestly don't think that this series is going to be making it out of the end of the year, which is absolutely insane to think about, but we're just whittling down all of our foes, and that's sort of where it is there, you know? It was a fine chapter to Elusive Samurai, but also, it wasn't one of those things where I'm like, man, this is the best chapter I've ever read, oh, look at that, right? Still, it was perfectly fine and good, though, right? Probably going to be ranking it towards the bottom, though. I say probably it will be ranking towards the bottom, right? And then we have Witch Watch. Gosh, this chapter made me laugh my ass off hysterically. We get a really nice cover page. It's just like, hey, this is Witch Watch, chapter number 203, Undercover, right? As you just get one of these images of like, hey, it's Nico, of course, in her younger form of her short hair now, just eating a little bit like a hot dog or something, just in like, hey, you're so cute, I could eat you up. It's honestly just a really beautiful little color page. I just absolutely love it, right? But the whole idea is we start off this chapter with Nimue talking on the phone to us, who we pretty much learn is Keigo, right? And she's like, oh yeah, so Morihito's away for an entire day. Like, now that's a little unusual. Oh, it's a vintage, like, event he just has to go to. Like, that just makes so much sense, right? Oh, and hey, it's Sunday, right? Like, what about all of your guys' meals? Like, is Momochi going to come over? Oh, yeah, her meals are too fattening. Oh, I totally understand, right? But hey, true, I suppose you guys will just have to manage by yourselves. Like, I'm sure you all will. Like, you're all mature enough, right? As we see that Nimue's mom is sort of just standing around the corner and just thinks like, oh, Nimue's talking to that boy again, Keigo Makami, right? And she just pretty much goes like, hey, I don't think they're dating yet, but they pretty much have, like, they will probably be dating soon air around them. Like, it's both, like, they're both aware of themselves, but, like, aren't brave enough to sort of make that first decisive step to it, right? And she's like, oh, man, what a sweet, youthful romance, pretty much, right? As we pretty much see that she just thinks like, oh, Nimue's been avoiding me recently, and I really want to know about this boy, so like, hey, I just really want to know a little about him. And hey, if Morihito's going to be gone all day, oh yeah, Morihito. I shook his hand after all of those effects with the rainbow, for my mother here recently, right? And she just thinks like, hey, well, hey, I think it'll work then, right? As we cut to Sunday at 7 a.m., we see that Morihito is leaving the Otogi household, and Nimue's mother is just here around the corner. And she says like, hey, as long as I've touched him with my hand at least once, I can become them. As you just get a little bit of like an explanation of like, hey, Nimue's mother, Maya Miyato, unlike Nimue, who's still in training, she's a shapeshifter witch who is perfectly capable of copying another human, right? As you see that she pretty much goes in and infiltrates the Otogi household, pretty much, right? And she's like, oh man, it's quite tidy in here, look at all of this stuff. And then everybody starts to wake up here in the morning. It's like, oh, hey, Nico's walking into the room. We see that she's like, hey, like, weren't you going somewhere today, Moi? And, like, we see that Keigo's like, oh, hey, morning. And we see that Nimue's mother, what was her name again? Maya, just is like, oh, hey, there he is, Keigo. A little bit of frumpier guy than I expected, right? Like, really, is this the boy that Nimue's almost going out with? Like, his hair's a mess, and it's like, he's got giant bags under his eyes. Like, what is he doing, pretty much, right? As I love Keigo's whole thing of like, yeah, I started gaming last night, and the next thing I knew it was dumb. Like, oh man, what am I doing around here, right? And of course, we get the whole idea of like, hey, Nimue's mother, why she may be a good witch, she of course can perfectly like capture a person's appearance, but personality is another deal, right? We see that Kanchi pretty much comes out like, hey, good morning, you're still here. Morihito brings over, who's his face, Miharu with her. Bond's also here, and she's just like, hey, who is this person? Like, should she even be here, right? And pretty much we just see that all of them are pretty much just sitting on the couch doing nothing, right? As we just see they're all sitting there, and we see that Khan's like, grilled onigiri. Nico's like, yeah, sunny side up with sausage. And, like, the rest of them all give in a little bit of a meal order. And Mia's like, or Mia is just like, or Maya, what am I saying? And she's like, oh gosh, like, what's going on here? Does Morihito really make them breakfast every morning? She ends up making it for him, and they all eat pretty much here in the moment, right? As we then see, they're all just hanging out with each other, being really good friends. Eventually, everybody goes back to the rooms, and Nico sort of just, like, hangs out to talk a little bit with Morihito, or at least who she thinks is Morihito, about some of her classmates and all of this stuff, right? Eventually, Kanchi comes in, just is like, hey, I'm feeling kind of snacky. Do we happen to have any of these, like, Ohagi rice balls lying around? Like, do you want to buy the mini-mart register? And she's like, why would any of those be here? Lo and behold, there is one over there, of course, because Morihito is very diligent and plans early, right? Keigo comes out and is like, hey, Morihito, I found, like, the coolest video, like, you want to take a look, right? He comes over, right? And, of course, Miharu just says, like, hey, Morihito, it's that time of day, like, do you mind if I can't hold out any longer, like, you mind if I take a sip? And he's like, hey, come on, don't play all coy with me, like, you know, all I want's a quick hit off of you, pretty much, right? And eventually it's the whole idea of, like, you should have phrased it like that, Miharu. He pretty much goes over, touches, Maya, and she falls onto the ground. It's always just like, whoa, Morihito claps, and always like, Miharu, don't suck up that much, but like, hey, I'm barely even hit him at all, like, I just wanted a quick shot, right? It's like, come on, dude, you can't be making all of these, like, funny references like this, like, yes, I get it, it's funny, come on, bro, right? And eventually the whole idea is Morihito wakes up later, and it seems like, potentially Maya has a little bit of a different caveat to her abilities, being that, like, hey, she totally passed out, and unlike Nimue, who whenever she passes out, she shapeshifts out of her form, it's a little bit different, you know, right? Because she doesn't shapeshift, she just keeps the form here in a moment, right? But she pretty much passes out, and the whole idea is all of the members of the Yogi household are like, hey, it's fine, we made lunch for ourselves, like, it's dinner time now, like, everything's out in the fridge, like, we'll take care of you, Morihito, like, it's not every day that you kill over, so we finally have our chance to help out, right? As the whole idea is like, hey, these guys just always want to help Morihito, but Morihito just says, like, hey, he's, like, the ultimate, like, perfectionist who just refuses help from anybody, and until all this pretty much happens, and we see that Maya just thinks, like, hey, because Morihito's so competent, everyone leans on him, and because he's both caring and fussy, he winds up doing all of it himself. Like, I wouldn't call it the best arrangement, but the household seems neatly balanced enough. But most of all, it's a pleasantly noisy and active home, pretty much, right? Until eventually she just thinks more of her daughter and all this various stuff, and just like, hey, why do I not treat my daughter the way that all of these people are being treated, right? Until eventually we see that Keigo transforms into Wolf here in the moment, right? And Miharu's like, damn it, like, who cut the carrot into crescent-shaped pieces, right? And we see Nico's like, hey, it was an accident, like, my bad, and Wolf's like, hey, I'm hungry, can I eat all of this? And they're like, no, you can't, like, hey, what's going on here, right? And we see that Maya's just like, well, is all this, like, normal? Like, it's just way too lively around here. As Wolf walks over to Morihito and just says, like, hey, yeah, you ain't Morihito. Who are you then, right? And, of course, Maya's like, oh, no, this isn't good, and just totally runs away here in the moment, right? And, of course, Morihito then walks into the house, getting mad, like, hey, guys, sorry I'm so late today, and, like, hey, I was actually expecting to be gone a little longer, actually, and, like, oh, really? Like, hey, you guys made dinner, right? And the whole idea is, like, yeah, we're just about to eat, and, like, boy, you're acting weird today, aren't you, Moy? And, of course, like, hey, he's back in the household here. Seems like he had a great day at his vintage convention, pretty much. And the whole end of the chapter is Maya just trying to dote on Nimue a little bit more. Like, hey, let me do all this stuff for you. Like, I made you so self-sufficient, but I thought this was a hilarious chapter of Witch Watch, and I really love this chapter of Witch Watch, because it just showed us the everyday of the Otaki household, and that's just something I love so much whenever we get. It's like, not just the comedy chapters, but just seeing how, of course, Kanji, Keigo, Miharu, Nico, and Morihito just all interact on a day-to-day basis. It's just something really awesome to see, and something that I wish we saw more of these downtime moments in series like One Piece and all these, like, high-octane action series, because it just makes me love these series a little bit more. Oh no, I just deleted, like, half of my chapters. I guess it's Control... I think I pressed Control Q or Control W that deletes those things, right? Let me navigate back over to the spreadsheet. Okay, here we are. If I can get as I like it. There we go. Alright, back over. We got Witch Watch. I'm putting it at the top. And then it's now time to rank all of these series from what I thought was the worst chapter of the week all the way down to what I thought the best chapter of the week was, and all the other spots in between. So we're going to start on the bottom. I think we're going to put EMB Embers on the bottom, and then put the Elusive Samurai right above it. We will then slip in a Hema Tin, and then right above it put a Ulti X-Ro Kiyoshi. And that's going to be our bottom four right this second. I guess we'll put Kill, if I could spell it, Kill Blue right above it, or at least not put on my caps lock. We'll put Kill Blue right above it, and then Star of B-E-E-T-H-O. I could also turn off my caps lock, B-E-T-H-O-V-E-N. Man, my fingers really want to stick to the shift key all of a sudden, right? But those are going to be the bottom 6 series, I think. But that means we still have 8 more to slot into the top spots. And like I said, there's a lot of really good contenders this week. Like, I know I put Star of Beethoven, Kill Blue, and all of those pretty low, but, like, I legitimately enjoyed almost every chapter this week, at least to a certain extent. Like, Embers and the Elusive Samurai are sort of more just, like, yeah, I'm not really, like, totally feeling it, but I can still, like, admit, like, they were good chapters, you know what I'm saying? Okay, but we've Witch Watch, which I really loved for, like, the family moments. Akane Banashi, which was just, like, cool seeing all 3, Karashi, Hikaru, and Akane all in one place again. Odor of the Flame, I really like all of the 610s, like, characterization. I just liked how it all worked out. Blue Box was just nice and cute. Ichi the Witch was just, gosh, that was a good-ass chapter of, like, Gokuraku realizing all of this and just seeing all of Deskura's stuff. Kagurabachi, just really good. I just loved seeing Hawkeye do all of his things. One Piece, Gunko's, like, very intriguing, and Sidcraft had, like, just a random twist. Not really random. Like I said, it was built up a little bit, but I think I am going to put Blue Box right above Star of Beethoven and put One K-E-C-E right above that. I think they were both good, but I just think that they were sort of more of that lesser effect of these chapters this week. Okay. Oh, this is really difficult. Like, I loved all of these chapters. So, Witch Watch, Akane Banashi, Odor of the Flame, Ichi the Witch, and Kagurabachi. After reading all these chapters, I think Kagurabachi is in these lower three. I want to put Odor. Oh, God. Oh, I don't know. Oh, gosh. These are all so good. I hate whenever I just can't make a decision like this. Okay, let's do it this way. What was my favorite chapter? I really like Witch Watch. I don't think Kagurabachi, Ichi the Witch, or Sid is getting it. I don't think Odor's getting it. I think it's Witch Watch or Akane Banashi. Those are my top two for sure. Okay, I think it's got to be Witch Watch. I thought that was a really funny chapter, just seeing how everybody interacted with each other. I laughed out loud at a lot of the jokes. I think I got to give it to W.I. Witch. I give the Witch Watch, and of course, as I said, we'll put Akane Banashi right below it. And then, Odor of the Flame was really good. Ichi the Witch. I'm going to put Ichi the Witch. And then we'll put Odor of the Flame, Kagurabachi, and Sidcraft. Oh, gosh. I think Kagurabachi was the better chapter at the end of the day. Kagurabachi. And we'll end it off with a Sidcraft. Okay, that's where all of those chapters are going. That was honestly pretty rough, and really, I think most of that ranking was the same. We just switched up Ichi and Odor, but really good issue of manga this week. Okay, as far as characters go, not really anybody from Witch Watch. I don't really feel like giving it to Maya. Akane Banashi, Ichi the Witch, not really anybody who's realistically sticked out. I really like 610 from Order of the Flame. Kagurabachi Hawkery had a really good week. Sidcraft, honestly, nobody really from there. One Piece, Scopper Gabon. Scopper Gabon had a really good week. Blue Box, not really. Star Beethoven. Star Beethoven intro was really funny, just constantly running away, jumping into a river and then being caught by Lexi. I thought it was really funny. Yeah, bro, what are you doing? Running away from us? What's going on, man? I just also really love doing that accent for Lexi. I don't know why, because we saw he was in New Orleans, right? It's just or Chicago, wherever he was, so I've got to do that accent, you know? Kill Blue, Old Nexus, Koshi, Himdinlu, Samurai Embers. Yeah, definitely 610 Hawkery or Gabon. Oh, gosh. I really want to give it to Hawkery. But Gabon was also really cool this week. Let me just go look back through and look at their moments again, right? I opened up Ichi the Witch. Oh, that's right. I deleted both Kagurabachi. Okay, I have to remember what happened in Kagurabachi chapter, but I did talk about it in a video earlier today. It was really good. And Gabon had a really nice moment. I think I did like Hawkery's moment more. So I'm sorry, Gabon, you're out of here. And then 610. I liked how he was getting built up as this person, sort of going through in training order. But I think at the end of the day, I'm going to have to give it to my good old boy, Hawkery from Kagurabachi. I just really liked his characterization, and I just thought it was a good old fun time. But yeah, that's all the chapters this week. So thank you guys so very much for watching this video on Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 26 of 2025. Going over to OBS, I've been recording for an hour, just under an hour and 10 minutes here in a moment, an hour and 8 currently. And I think I've had to cut out a little bit out of this episode, but I don't think it's been that bad so far. I don't think I've really messed up any of my wordplay or anything, but just really good chapters of manga this week, and what can I say, right? But hey, thank you guys so very much for watching this video. I talk about Weekly Shonen Jump every single week, so hey, I've almost been covering Weekly Shonen Jump. I think I've covered it for half of a year straight now, pretty much. So I started at issue number 43 of 2024. I've now gone here, and of course, the old videos I used to do in 2023. Granted, I don't think those were the best videos. At the time, I was some of the most proud out of some of those videos out of anything I've ever done before. I remember one of them, I specifically put Hina on the thumbnail of it. I think it was the first video I ever had that got over an hour of recording time. I remember it being just a really good video, and I was really proud of editing it and posting it. So maybe go check out that one. I guess the first episode of this podcast that was over an hour. I think that was the one. Who really knows? But Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I've covered this series plenty of times. There'll be a playlist down in the description box of this YouTube video and also on the end card of this video. And hey, I also put this show up on podcasting platforms. Like, if you guys are a fan of, like, Apple Podcasts or any of those things, this show is up there. Just search up Let's Ramble about Weekly Shonen Jump. Or no, it's Let's Talk About Weekly Shonen Jump. That's what the podcast name is. I probably should know all of that, but I'm just getting all rambling at this point. Don't really have too much else to say. Just a great issue of Jump. I absolutely loved it this week. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time for Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 27 of 2025. Again, this was issue number 26. Again, we had a Witch Watch, Akane Banashi, Ichi the Witch, Odor of the Flame, Kagurabachi, Sid Craft, One Piece, Blue Box Star, Beethoven, Kill Blue, Ultimate Exodus, Kyoshi, Himaten, the Elusive Samurai, and Embers. And of course, we picked Hakuri Sazanami from Kagurabachi as our character of the week. And yeah, with all that out of the way, I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma 231, Love and Shonen Jump, signing out. I'll catch you guys next time.